The following podcast is an enticing media production.
Where the Nell have you been? Join us for conversation about life, business, and everything in between. Welcome to What the Nell, where we've got stories to tell. Here's your host, Nell Tice.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of the What the Nell podcast with yours truly, Nell Tice. I am super excited because I have an awesome local business owner with me today, local in Camp Hill. I completely forget to ask the guest every time before we start recording how to properly pronounce their name. So, Dr. Caissa Troutman.
You are right on. That was awesome.
My gosh. I feel like I never get it right, but I also never remember to do that. So thank you for helping me out with that. But I'm really excited for you guys to take a listen to this episode. Dr. Troutman is the physician founder of Weight Remdy, a direct care wellness medical practice. She has three main targets: weight wellness, sleep health, and midlife menopausal health. She helps her patients lose weight for the last time using the 4-pillar foundation plan, learn how to sleep without medicine, and CBT-I, and help women in midlife achieve a higher quality of life through menopause hormone treatment. Very interested. So her professional training...
Big trio.
Yeah, the big trio. Her professional training as triple board certified obesity med and culinary medicine physician helps her break down healthy eating, the connection between our brain, our hormones, and weight, the neurohormonal connection, and the science of weight wellness to her. She creates a 4-pillar foundation plan based on their unique brain and biology. She teaches nutrition and how to learn how to eat sustainably, physical activity to empower health, a multi-component behavior change strategy with sleep, stress, and mindset, as well as medication, which is a tool to treat the biology of weight. She also believes that her most important qualification is her personal story. So, Dr. Troutman, welcome officially to the podcast.
Well, thanks a lot, Nell. I'm so happy to be here and excited to chat and share my story and what I can do for your listeners.
Absolutely. I love it. So I want to get right into it. I'm very excited to talk to you because I will tell you, and I didn't mention this on purpose before we started recording, I am in the midst of a 72-hour fast. And we're at about hour 48 right now. And I've got some feelings, but, it's something that I believe in. And I want to talk more about that too. But, part of what I'm doing is related to not necessarily weight loss, but just being healthy in general. But we throw around the word obesity so often, and it may kind of seem like, why would anybody ask this? But what exactly is obesity? Because I think there's so many different definitions.
Yes, and I think that's the perfect question to start us off because, I once we know or once we recognize what it is, I think that's how we can recognize how to treat it, the strategies on how we can kind of treat the issue. So, as a physician specializing in obesity medicine, the way I look at it and the way really modern science and specialists look at it is that obesity is a medical condition, meaning it is not a moral failing. It's not a personal failure. Okay. Which is, a lot of the times how a society kind of gives us that feeling, gives us that definition, like, oh, you should just eat less and move more. And if you didn't work, you're doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. You must not be doing it right. So it's like a personal responsibility of set in a way, right? And I think that's how it's been for the last couple of decades, is that
100%.
It is our fault. It's your fault if you didn't lose weight, if you can't if because we're just so used to being hard on ourselves in a certain way. Now, we know a lot more about our brain, we know a lot more about our cells, about our hormones and how they all relate. And now we know that our food seeking behavior as well as our metabolism is actually regulated by hormones in our body. So, which means we have no control over these particular hormones, but that doesn't mean that we cannot treat it. But again, when we recognize that it's driven by certain hormones, we can figure out, okay, what will affect these hormones? What are the things that I can do that can, help turn it on, turn it off, or just lessen the impact of that? So, so yeah, so at the forefront it's a complex condition. So it's not just eat less, move more, eat less and move more, as it's always been shared. Now, that doesn't mean eating and exercise is not appropriate. It's so appropriate. It's part of the 4-pillar plan that we endorse, but it is not just the only thing. And the thing is, a big part of it is also our genetics, what we're born with, how our brains are wired, how our emotional resilience is, and as well as environment, how emotionally resilient are we? How do we use our emotions? Do we buffer when we're stressed, right? So in short, it's somewhat complicated, isn't it?
It sounds like a high school relationship. It's complicated.
Right? Yeah, yeah. And I think there is no one type of obesity. There are different types of obesity or what we call phenotypes, where somebody can struggle with increased hunger, somebody could struggle with metabolism, somebody could struggle with how their body utilizes energy. So it is sometimes it's also the medications you're on, sometimes it's the kind of but so many things, basically. I hope I
Interesting.
didn't confuse you more.
No, no, you didn't. I think that you're explaining it so well because honestly, I didn't even know. So obesity to me in I think a lot of society is a number. It's a number for what your body type or what you think it should be. And I we make jokes all the time too, oh my gosh, I feel so obese today or that type of thing. And I never really think about it as a medical condition. I also didn't know that there were different types of obesity too. So thank you for explaining that. But yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people look at obesity as something that is visual. We look at
Right.
someone or we look at ourselves and we say, oh, that's obese. But that's not it at all.
Yeah, I think it's perpetuated by our BMI kind of obsession, right? When you go to the
Yes.
doctor, you get put on the scale. What's your height? What's your weight? The BMI is this calculated number, which is, and then of course medicine uses that, right? If you're above a certain BMI, you're in the overweight category, obese category. So what's interesting is the history of BMI is actually not a medical tool to begin with. It was actually a statistician that did that, for insurance reasons. And
Oh.
so but because it was so easy to replicate, get a height, get a weight, it is something that we've kind of continued. Now, there's really a lot of talk on how we really want to redefine obesity, in the sense that really the issue with obesity, because of the hormonal effects, is a lot of it is because of adipose tissue, or our percent body fat,
Mhm.
is really the problem, or the issue with obesity. So a way of looking at the medical condition of obesity is um, fat cells, or adipose tissue, is not just a storage of energy. It's not just a form of storage. It's actually also an endocrine organ. Did you know that? Or have you heard of that, Nell?
No, I
So,
haven't. Oh my
yeah.
gosh. I've
So
heard a lot about endocrine system disruptors, but Yeah, I haven't heard about
Yeah,
that.
so the definition of an endocrine system or organ is something that secretes hormones from one cell, and then it exerts its effect on another cell further away, right? So a common example, right? Like your thyroid hormone, right? People all know about the thyroid. So it's a
Mhm.
gland in our neck, but it exerts its effort all throughout our body, like our heart, like our metabolism, etc.
Mhm.
So actually, adipose tissue. And again, obesity is a condition where we have excess adiposity, and that adipose tissue has several effects. One is, again, that endocrine function, and it secretes a particular hormone called leptin, which actually is a satiety hormone, but it also secretes transmitters like inflammation. That's why the state of obesity is actually related to a lot of heart disease, diabetes, a lot of even cancer. Did you know that? That
Oh,
there are
wow.
actually,
Yeah.
yeah. So obesity is connected to at least, I lost count, I think 290 medical conditions, including 13 cancers.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh
So,
my gosh,
yeah.
that's insane.
So yeah, so that's why we want to go beyond aesthetics, right? We want to go
Yeah.
beyond fitting in a size, I don't know, fill in whatever size you want, right?
Right.
And go into, although that is, I will tell you right now, that is the number one reason why my patients really come see me is I want to feel good, I want to feel more confident. But as a physician, hey, if that's your why, I'm going to use that why and like kind of guide you onto let's utilize that, let's bank on that, because this after effects of eating healthy and moving our body will be, of course, these improvements in our health. But yeah, there's at least 13 cancers, breast cancer, colon cancer, that if we decrease our adiposity, lose weight, even just 5 to 10% of our total body weight, that actually decreases our risk.
Wow,
So
that's incredible. So, yeah, that's amazing. I didn't realize that obesity had such an impact on so many things beyond just the look of things or fitting into a
yeah,
size that
yeah,
you want to fit into, that type of thing. But and I knew that, and I do pay attention a lot to what I put into my own body
awesome.
and what, I'm very cognizant of things. And a lot of what I think contributes to, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, please do. A lot of what I feel like contributes to what I'll call like our obesity epidemic, I guess you could say,
It is an
is
epidemic. Yeah,
yeah, okay,
it
good.
is.
I mean, not good, but I guess I'm not speaking out of term, but I think that a lot of our food in our society, processed foods and things like that, contribute a lot to that. Refined sugars, things like that. Would you agree?
So certainly nutrition has a big part, plays a big part. Yeah. Ultra processed food. There's actually studies have come out that ultra processed foods actually increase our hunger. And of course,
Mhm.
by acting on some of the metabolic hormones. And when you have increased hunger, you're going to increase your food seeking behavior and of course, increase your overall caloric intake for the day. And that gets stored as, extra adipose tissue. So again, food definitely plays a part, and a lot of us don't know how to fuel our body, for lack of a better term.
Mm,
Because
interesting.
why is it harder? I mean, if you just look at the prices, right? It's so much cheaper to eat processed foods than it is to get your fruits and vegetables and so on and so forth. But
Yeah,
even though it is a real part of the problem, it does not discount the fact that there are still a lot of factors that affect that,
sure.
And I think for the longest time, the emphasis has always been on you just have to eat better and you'll lose weight.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, there.
that's,
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
so
sorry, go
again,
ahead.
it impacts it, but it's not just that, right? So,
Right.
um, so as obesity specialists, that's part of what we're advocating for is just kind of recognizing that it does go beyond nutrition. Obviously, again, I'm not going to say nutrition is never
Sure.
important. It absolutely is, but to really go beyond that and recognize that some people have a harder time with losing weight because of how their brains are set up genetically and how they respond to these hormones.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a friend of mine recently said to me, if you want to lose weight, it's simple: calories in, calories out. That's the only thing that works, that you have to be in a calorie deficit. That's what works for every single person, man, woman, child, it doesn't matter. So, what are your thoughts on that statement?
Yeah, and I think I've kind of said that already in the beginning, right? That I think that's a very simplistic way of looking at it. And I get why it's so easy, why it's very attractive, because it mathematically makes sense in our head, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
neat neat box to do it. But the reality is, let maybe to make it a little easier, let's utilize energy instead. Instead of saying calorie in, calorie, let's use energy. Okay.
Okay.
Of course, food, our food sources is a source of energy, right?
Mhm.
So when we have kind of hormonal dysregulations, for example, insulin resistance,
Mhm.
um, we could have two people, individuals that are eating the same amount of calories and exercising the same amount of time and level, but the person with insulin resistance is someone that will have a harder time with weight loss.
Yeah.
And why is that? Because the way when you have insulin resistance, our body does not store glucose or carbohydrate as easily, and it tends to create kind of it starts to switch to more fat storage, right?
Ah,
So,
okay.
so that is why it's not as simple as that. Now, and again, let me kind of backtrack a little bit. Um, you know, this struggle with weight really will only apply to patients that have obesity. It's not
Mhm.
going to apply to people that are are in the normal weight for majority of their lives.
Mhm.
So there are people that are genetically, I would say lucky that they don't have a high food seeking behavior brought about by the brain and hormones.
Mhm.
Their metabolism is good. They don't have insulin resistance, et cetera, et cetera, right?
Right.
But there is a lot in our population, and I'm trying to pull up the CDC statistics. I think it's around in 2020, it's going to be around 50% of US adults would be in the overweight and obese category.
Wow.
So it's not, this is that's why it's an epidemic. So for those patients that struggle with obesity, their genetics, their hormonal buildup or makeup is very different. That, like I said, it will be very different for them to do that.
Sure.
And I mean, I can tell you stories from my patients that on the very first visit, tell me the extremes of what they've done,
Mhm.
for to try and lose weight, and how frustrated they are that it they don't see change, And again, that's actually a very common
Yeah.
thing with my menopause, perimenopause patients, Very common statement is, I haven't changed anything. I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm working out the same. Why am I gaining weight? And
Yeah.
that's with menopause, perimenopause. The main reason for that is actually there's threefold, but in terms of nutrition, the estrogen decline creates that insulin resistance state.
Okay.
So yeah, so maybe your friend is someone that's genetically gifted, that she doesn't struggle with that. And there are really, and I think for someone who, how do I say it? Like for someone who's never struggled
Mhm.
with their weight, that's very easy to say. But
Sure. Yeah.
for someone who struggled with their weight, and I'm gonna, raise my hand and say I am one of those. I'm a patient with obesity. I'm a person with obesity, and
Mhm.
it's not easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not just that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, no, I thank you for explaining that too. Now, I really want to get into, you mentioned perimenopause, and I think that the excuse we always give is, "Oh my gosh, my body's changing. I am gaining so much weight. I can't eat like I used to because I'm not 21 anymore." And we always just attribute it to age and getting older. But I myself, I'm just shy of 40 as a
Oh, you
woman.
young one.
Oh my gosh. Some days I feel like that's true and other days I don't. But, it's something that I'm now discovering I'm experiencing. It's perimenopause. And, there's different, like, I notice one day I wake up and if I stare at a cookie, I gain weight. And it's like all these things are just happening and changing and the hormones. And it's crazy because I feel like for a while I had a situation in my life where I was very stressed out and I didn't realize until it was a little too late that stress and hormones go
Yeah.
hand in hand. So,
Yeah.
can we get into a little bit about that too, especially for our
Absolutely.
perimenopausal audience?
Sure. So I think if you're okay, before we dive into the perimenopause,
Okay.
let's do that. I would like to kind of share the four hormones that I always
Yes.
talk about with my patients, which are the hormones that regulate our metabolism.
Mm,
So one, so this will apply to any patient, person that struggles with obesity, and then we'll zone in on perimenopause specifically because
perfect.
that's actually the same hormones, but just.
Got
So the
it.
first is ghrelin. Okay, so that's Ghrelin.
Okay.
Ghrelin is literally called the hunger hormone. Okay.
Ah,
So it's secreted by our gut or stomach cells. And then when it goes up, it's secreted by our gut, and then it sends the message to our brain, a part of our brain called our hypothalamus. And it's saying, I'm hungry, feed me. Okay. So
yes.
that's a hormone that goes up. Let's say when we haven't eaten for 12 hours, like if you were fasting, right? So that's why
Right.
we can get hungry if we have not eaten for a while. Um, the other hormone is leptin. So ghrelin and leptin are what we call kind of yin and yang, right? So leptin is actually a satiety hormone. It's a signal that says, I'm full, let's stop eating.
Okay.
But guess what happens when we struggle with obesity is there's something called leptin resistance, where they're kind of like my kids. When I tell them to do their chores, they don't listen to me. So what happens is the brain is getting the signal of I'm full, but it's not listening to it. So
Ah,
even though we just ate, it's like continuing to eat,
got
you
it.
know. The
Got it.
third is insulin, which I kind of alluded to earlier, right?
Hmm.
So insulin, again, the issue with insulin is again insulin resistance, where
Yeah.
the cells are not listening to the signals. So what's going on is we're just storing, preferentially storing carbohydrates into adipose
And
or
that's
fat.
where diabetes comes in.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's like a spectrum. It's insulin resistance is in the beginning stage, and then diabetes is like, a little bit on the further on
Okay.
stage.
Okay.
And then the last is that hormone you just actually mentioned, it's cortisol, you know.
Ah,
So
yeah.
cortisol is secreted by our adrenal glands and then again has a body-wide impact. And the thing with cortisol is it can increase your hunger hormone that I just talked to you about. And also
Ah.
can increase leptin resistance that I just talked to you about.
Oh my gosh. I'm like making all of these connections in my head about how the body is dealing with this. This is incredible.
I mean, it's so amazing. I mean, the first thing, our brains are so amazing that it can do all of that. And our body is so amazing that it can do all of these, and how it's so interrelated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So those are the top four. There are other hormones that affect our metabolism, but I always like revert or refer to this top
Hmm.
four because a lot of disease states and, for example, perimenopause, which we'll talk about in a second, actually reflects back to these four hormones. So hunger
Right.
hormone, leptin is the fullness, but again, they're resistant. Think of kids that don't want to do their dishes, or chores. They're not listening. Right? The body's not listening. Insulin resistant, same thing. The body's not listening.
Hmm.
And then four is that cortisol. Yeah, it's so fascinating. I actually have like when I share with my patients, I have like a diagram because it's sometimes hard to figure. I'm a very visual person, so when I kind of
Yes.
like show that my diagrams, oh yeah, yeah, that's what it is.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay. Yeah. No, it is absolutely fascinating and how the body works and correlates and does and connects everything to make up who we are. And, we obviously here at the What the Nell podcast, if anybody's been listening for a certain amount of time, you probably understand by now that a lot of our listenership is based around entrepreneurship and business owners. And we're constantly, as business owners and entrepreneurs like you yourself, we're busy and,
oh my God.
maybe we have these issues going on that we need to address and we don't know how or we don't feel like we have the time to
Yeah.
address them. And so I really want to touch on maybe a busy entrepreneur that knows, they want to lose weight or they want to get healthy and they've got to regulate hormones, but where do you even start? And I want to give a little bit of guidance to that group of people.
Yeah. So, because obesity is a medical condition, I think definitely seeking the advice of your physician, healthcare provider is the first step. Okay.
Mhm.
But my thought is it has to be a multi-component approach. Like it can't just be get a medicine and that's it. Really, it's that four pillar: nutrition, moving our body, stress and sleep, and then medication as a tool. I think so. Maybe let's touch on as an entrepreneur myself, right? I think
Mhm.
one of the main issue is stress.
Yes.
And I think stress is harder to treat because it's not like you can test for it, right? It's not
Right.
like you can kind of just, oh, you have a temperature, you have stress, right? And the thing is, we know a lot more now, about chronic stress and how it really does affect like a lot of things, including our
Mhm.
weight.
Right.
So, so for all you like busy entrepreneurs, I think one of the I would say I'm going to relate. I'm going to say two things and like maybe relate a little bit of my own my spin on it. One,
Yeah.
one is really prioritizing sleep. You
Mm.
know, so
Oh, that's a
hard,
tough
right?
one. Tough one.
Yes, yes, yes. I think the statistics is like, oh, 1 in 3 people struggle with insomnia, right?
Wow.
So again, there's different ways to approach it, but I think recognizing that it is important, to sleep, to have that sleep.
Mhm.
And then there's 5 skills I always talk about in cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. But the first one really is maybe just if ever, because we only have so much time to talk. Which one do I choose? Is that sleep hygiene, and that is setting the sleep up, setting this night up for that sleep.
Mm.
We're not like a computer that you can just turn off and then go to sleep. I mean, I'm not. I know there are some people that can do that, but I'm not. So
I envy
really,
those people.
right. So it is about like half an hour before having I call it a power down routine. I didn't coin that. I remember reading about it before. A
Sure.
power down routine, either an half an hour or an hour before your sleep. So that could be um, you know, making sure you're not in front of a computer, watching TV, either doing some kind of light reading or doing some kind of, other relaxation response techniques, meditation,
Mhm.
yeah, and then um so that you gradually fall asleep. And sleep is one of those multifactorial issues. It could be from so many things, but so the first is sleep, and then two, I think, is prioritizing your de-stressors, whatever that
Mm.
is.
Yeah.
um I remember I just saw somebody in the office, and well, let me think about something. So I have one of my patients who is in the healthcare field.
Mhm.
I mean, that means long days, no working 80-hour weeks,
Sure.
not sleeping well, high stress job. And we work through nutrition. We work about this prioritizing physical activity, which she was good at physical activity because that was one of her de-stressors. But it was just that chronic environment of her stressful job that we were she lost weight. We were somewhat stalling a little bit after she's lost a significant amount of weight, but and then she made the decision to change her job. Now, I didn't make her change her job, so I just want to have qualified that she reached that decision on her own. But once she changed jobs, it was a big difference,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it could be multifactorial because she had more time to meal prep, because she had more time to work out, because she's
Sure.
sleeping better, right? But there were definitely that's when we started seeing kind of weight loss again.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
um so it's just it is just amazing. And I think what happens is we don't realize how stressed we are until we're out of that situation. right?
I 100% agree with
Right?
that. That
Yeah.
was the situation that I was leading to earlier was I was in a situation, a job that I absolutely just needed to get out of. I walked in one day, quit and or resigned, I should say. And then eventually my stress, or I had different types of stressors because now I'm full-time in our business and that's a, different stress in
Right.
itself,
Yes.
but I don't have the same stressor. So I noticed a couple of things when that happened. I stopped gaining the weight, which I thought was really interesting because I didn't start losing it. But I also went from being on my feet all day and getting 20,000 steps in a day routinely to sitting behind a computer all day. So I think that probably played a part in it. But I definitely noticed some huge changes when I changed my job and changed my stressors. And even to the point where I noticed less hair falling out. My hair was getting
Yeah.
thinner because of the
Yeah.
stress. It's
Yeah.
just amazing.
Yeah.
So, no, I thank you for explaining all of that. That's amazing. So, for the to kind of wrap everything up,
Is it time to end? Wow, we can talk about that for hours.
I know, I know. I have so many I want to know more about, culinary medicine. And, I've always believed that food is thy medicine. I don't remember who said that, and I know we talked about this before.
Right.
Socrates or I think it was Socrates. I don't know. If I'm wrong, somebody will tell me. But food is thy medicine, and I fully believe in that. So tell us a little bit more about what exactly is a culinary medicine specialist? How does all of that work?
Yeah. So, so culinary medicine, in kind of in gist is really making food, healthy food tasty, for lack of a better kind of term. So the idea is really kind of how can we break down, the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet, a
Mm.
low sodium, low salt, low fat diet. How can I break that down
Mhm.
in a way that my patients will understand? I've been a practicing physician for 20 years or more. And
Mm.
as a physician before, I would when I see a patient, let's say with high blood pressure, I say, okay, do a low salt diet, yada, yada. But I didn't really know how to break it down and explain it.
Ah.
So now with culinary medicine training, in a way I could like, hey, instead of eating, let's just, the canned vegetables.
Hmm.
I mean, if the only choice you have is canned vegetables, well, you can rinse it twice, and that will decrease the sodium load of the vegetable.
Good point. Really good point.
So little tricks like that, and even just recognizing taste and flavor. So in a recipe, we could actually we could keep the flavor by decreasing salt. Remember, salt. The reason we add that on is for taste and
Yeah,
flavor, right?
sure.
But we can decrease the sodium content of our foods by adding umami types of foods. So like tomato paste,
Mhm.
your mushrooms. I have a awesome mushroom burger, turkey mushroom burger that really tastes really good.
Oh,
So
that sounds delicious.
it brings that umami flavor, which is they call it the smoky or that meaty flavor, which is that other sense. And so we can decrease the sodium. And now
Mm.
that patient can have, a recipe that follows the low salt plan. So, and actually, I really like cooking too. I grew up in the Philippines. I was the de facto kind of cook. I mean, when I say cook, I throw stuff in. I don't follow a recipe.
That's how I cook too.
So in a way, and for me, cooking when I have time, cooking is really a de-stressor of sorts for me.
Yes.
So I fell into it, in a way. So it was a good one for me, and I share recipes to my patients. That's actually what I do with my patients. I do monthly group sessions, and we alternate between cooking sessions. So I'm live in my kitchen and they watch me, and
Oh,
then we
wow.
do together. I send them the recipe ahead of time. And then alternating that with kind of mindset kind of sessions, reset. So I talk about like, stuff like, um, there is no such thing as failure.
Oh, I
You
love
know,
that.
you can
That's cool.
redefine circumstances in your life and
Yes,
see that, hey, this taught me something, you know,
I love it.
and because, you know, then the reason a lot of people quit when they are on their weight loss journey is because they're discouraged. They're not
Hmm.
seeing results.
Hmm.
So, well, hey, why am I doing all these things if I'm not seeing the results, right? That's very
Right.
common. So, but sometimes and again, it could be that we just need to reset, whether it's changing a different nutrition plan, changing, macronutrients, changing how we're exercising, changing how we're sleeping, looking,
Hmm.
are we stressed? Is that why we're not losing weight? Or of course, um, sometimes it's also just about um recognizing that it takes time. I like
Yes.
this. I really like James Clear. I'm not familiar with him. Atomic
Yeah.
Habits. So
Yes.
he talks about the ice cube,
Yes.
right? So do we get upset at the ice cube for not melting?
Right.
But
Oh my gosh, it's been a while since I've read that.
yeah, right. But it's not going to melt until it hits a certain temperature. And I forgot
Exactly.
what the temperature is, right?
Yes.
So the idea is to wait. So sometimes it takes a little bit of time of what we're doing. If we know what we're doing is appropriate and not, crazy, and that's why you need, I think, a guidance of, an expert,
Yeah.
certainly your physician is one, or, if you are in Pennsylvania, I'm assuming there'll be Pennsylvania listeners, right? So I see patients in person as well in my office, as well as telemedicine. So there are other, of course, obesity experts, obesity specialists.
Mhm.
And again, the idea that I always share with my patients is, in terms of nutrition, it has to be sustainable.
Yes.
It
Yeah,
can't
that's
be
important.
like, something we can only do for 2 weeks. I mean, I've done that. I'm gonna raise my hand and tell you, I've done the soup diet. I've done got it cabbage diet. I've done everything.
Cabbage. I didn't even know there was a cabbage
Oh
diet. I
yeah,
mean, I'm not surprised, but
because you're a baby. I'm kidding.
Oh,
But it has to be something you can do long term,
mhm.
and very big emphasis on 1% change.
Mm,
A common way I tell, if I do a nutrition history with my patients when I
mhm.
when I see them. So let's say, man, I only eat like 2 servings of vegetable a day. Okay, so for now until I see you again, can we aim for 3 vegetables a day?
Mhm.
I mean, 3 servings of vegetable.
Right.
So even though the goal is 5 to 7, I'm not gonna have, it's gotta be 1%, right?
Yeah.
So when we do the 1% change and we check off that box, guess what? We get that dopamine hit, and
Hmm.
we feel like, oh my God, I'm amazing. I can do this, and
Yes.
we keep going. So that serves as motivation.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's such a good way of looking at it. I think that going from 0 to 100 is probably one of the quickest ways to fail at something.
And that's with business too, isn't it? I mean, I think everything,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yes, for sure. All right. So before we get to the what the Nell question, what are your thoughts on fasting? Do you
Yes,
think it's
yeah.
a good thing?
So, I think fasting is another tool.
Okay.
I think for me, it has to fit the right person, the right
Mhm.
patient. So, one of so the way I always approach any problem is, what is the change that we're implementing? And
Mhm.
then what is the behavior generated, right? So
Ah, yes.
if a patient comes to me and they're fasting, so my first question with them is, how are you doing during your eating window? Are you eating everything in sight? Are you
Hmm.
eating 3,000 calories during that time? So
Yeah.
if that is the case, because we are very hungry, because then it's probably not the right fit.
Right.
I will say I do have patients that do fast, and they're not creating that behavior of overeating. And again, patients that struggle with binge eating,
Mhm.
probably not the best kind of fit for them.
Right.
Now, again, so that's kind of how I look at it. And again,
Hmm.
that goes with any endeavor, any step, any change we
Sure.
do in the journey. Having said that, I actually do fast personally, because it fits my lifestyle. So that's the other thing. It has to be sustainable, right? Again, part of that
Yes.
sustainable. Can you do it? I normally, in my practice, I normally do not endorse longer than, I know you're doing a 72, right? I don't normally endorse longer than 18,
Yeah.
no,
Got it.
but I get it. I know Peter Attia does the long fasting autophagy, but
Yes.
so, you're probably doing that more for metabolic health. So that's the other thing is there's two reasons why people would be doing the fasting, right? They're
Mhm.
doing it for weight loss, but what the studies, well, I should say, what the studies have shown for weight loss is that it's the same, it will work because of caloric restriction.
Yes. Yeah.
But for metabolic health, longevity, there are papers for that. That's not for weight loss reasons,
Right.
right? That
No.
those are for other reasons. So if you're doing it for that, I think you just have to practice the safety protocols that's always done with fasting, right? So
Sure. Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you for reassuring that. Awesome. Well, I'm like bursting with all of the value that you have provided. I'm so excited to take some of this knowledge and put it to use, but also to share it with the world. But we do have a tradition here at the What the Know podcast.
oh no, I'm kind of
W-
scared.
We always like to ask the guest, do you have a what the Nell story for us? It can be anything, it could be about the topic at hand. It doesn't have to be about the topic at hand, but any sort of quirky, nutty story to leave the listeners and now viewers thinking, what the Nell just happened here?
Oh my God, I'm not prepared for this.
It can be anything like something crazy happened. You saw something at lunch today, or anything like that.
How about a little bit of a lesson-ish? Can I
I
do that?
love that. I
Okay,
love
so
that.
I just came from vacation. I shared
Oh,
this
very
with my
nice.
patient. I just came from vacation, and I have two teenagers now, and it was the vacation from HELL. It
Oh
was just
no.
like annoying teenagers complain. Now, granted, there was rain there, so you can't do the beachy stuff, and it was a little cold.
Yeah.
But so I was really annoyed, really upset. Man, this is the only vacation. It's like vacation,
Oh
right?
no.
I was thinking like you children should be like happy that we're on vacation because not everybody goes on vacation. So
Yes.
this is my kind of story there is the power of how we think about the situation.
Mm.
So at that point in time, I was stewing in anger and I was thinking they should just simply be happy that we're on vacation. Damn it, they should just be happy and they should just magically change who they are from annoying teenagers to teenagers that listen to their parents. But obviously that's not happening, right?
Wishful thinking, right?
Right? So what I did was I changed what I was thinking to, instead of looking for a perfect vacation, I was looking for moments. So I was looking for the moments during the vacation that was positive or makes me not want to strangle my kids moment. So so moments like, I don't know if I told you, I'm a little short. I'm 5 feet.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
I don't walk very fast. So my husband and my daughter were ganging up on me. Oh, Pokey one. And then my son is
Oh my
Pokey two
gosh.
because we're slow pokes. Or that time where, my daughter wanted to make a dinner. So it, so instead of now being upset that this was an annoying vacation,
Mhm.
I was like, well, it was a pretty good vacation because I was looking for the moments. And I remember this saying how memories are made up of,
That's so good. That's such a good what the null story. I
right?
love that. Oh my gosh. That's so good. I love it. So thank you for sharing that. That's something that we should all really think about. Whatever we're doing, whether it's vacation or we're having a bad day, and let's look for the moments that make the memories.
Or entrepreneurship, right? I
Absolutely.
mean, we talked about that before, like how we have to find every day a reason to keep going.
Yes. Yes. And I've talked to so many people that have said, if you don't at least once a week as an entrepreneur think, this is it, I'm done, I'm getting a job at McDonald's and that's going to be my life, then you're not a real entrepreneur.
I thought you were gonna say you're gonna not gonna be successful. I'm gonna be super successful because I deal with that every freaking day.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Oh, this has been so, so awesome. Dr. Troutman, thank you. I let everybody know, where can they find you and how can they connect with you?
Absolutely. All right. So my practice is called Weight Remedy, Remdy. And I have a brick and mortar in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. But again, I see patients via telemedicine as long as they're in the state of Pennsylvania. And again, I deal with three targets: weight wellness using science, love science, nerd here, sleep health using cognitive behavioral techniques, and a midlife remedy, I call it, for menopause hormone. I'm also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram with the same kind of handle.
Awesome. And of course, we'll have all of that information
Yes. Thank
in the show notes to this episode. So thank you so, so much for being here. I'm so happy that we were able to make this work. And I'm so happy that all of the listeners and now viewers, of course, have been able to enjoy this episode. So thank you to everyone for watching and listening. And don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube and leave us a review. That's how we grow here at the What the Nell podcast. And thank you so, so much. And as always, I will catch you on the next one.
To learn more about how to tell your story, connect with Nell at enticingmedia.com. That's ENTICEING media.com. Thanks for listening to the What the Nell podcast.